Here we are, video 3, best of the 3. I'm giving my best effort on this one. Maybe slacked off a little bit on video 1 and 2, but this is for real, video 3. So here we go. Video 3, arc length. Finding the length around a circle, because that's exciting and stuff we want to know. Again, go Titans. First, what we want you to do is copy this down. First off, C is circumference. What is circumference? Distance around, wax on, wax off. Distance around a circle. We do 2 pi r or pi d. Pi times diameter or 2 times pi times radius. It works for either way. It works both ways. So that's circumference. You're going to want to copy that down. Next, how do we find it? How are we going to figure out what the circumference is, or part of the circumference, part of the way around a circle? Kind of comes back to formulas. A lot of times these things with trig and geometry, formulas are really what we fall back on. So here we go. So arc length of AB could be a different arc. We're saying that the length of the arc divided by the circumference is equal to the measurement in degrees of the arc over 360. Okay? So a certain amount of degrees around a circle divided by the entire circle's degrees, which is 360, is always equal to the arc length, distance around, over the entire circle or distance around. Makes sense? So it's like part of a distance over the whole distance, part of a degrees over the entire degrees of a circle. Magical. It's magical. So one last thing besides I wrote yay math, because it's always about yay math. Yes. Is this. This S equals R times theta. S equals R times theta. That gets into radians. In this video, we're going to focus on degrees. Radians is something we'll try to get into here before the end of the semester. But right now, we're going to focus on degrees. But if you do see this S, which is arc length, equals the radius times theta, it does work. But it's more based on radian measure around a circle instead of degrees. So I'm just letting you know, you may see that. I'm doing a little bit different. Focus on degrees. Okay, here's one example. I want to figure out what is the distance from A to B on the circle. And I know the distance from A to P, or P to A, that's a radius. The radius of the circle is 8 centimeters. So that's very important. You need the radius or you need a diameter of a circle. That really, really helps. If they happen to give you the diameter, great, you're set. If they do give you the radius, we are going to double it. Because remember, we're either going to use 2 pi r or we're going to use pi d. In this particular case, 2 pi r, because we have the radius. Okay. So how do we do it? Magic. That's how we do it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this formula right here. Now, so you're probably saying, well, how do I know whether I'm using the top formula or the bottom formula? They're the same formula. They're just in a different form. For example, on this one right here, if I simply multiply both sides by 2 pi r, I'll be left with arc length by itself, which is what we have here. So, but when you want the arc length, we're just using this bottom formula. Okay. If we're looking for something else, then we go back to this little proportion that we started with. Okay. But they're interchangeable. They work together. They're really just the same formula. Cool. So here's what we're going to do right here. I'm going to say that the length of AB is going to be equal to the measurement of the arc, which is 60 degrees. So we're going to do 60 divided by 360. And we're going to multiply that by 2 pi r, which is the circumference. So 2 times pi times the radius. Now, if you just want to go ahead and change that where it says 2 pi r, 2 times 8 is 16. So it's going to save you one extra step if you just take 2 times the radius and do pi d. So that is 16 pi. Okay? Now is where we could use a calculator. If you take 60 times 16 pi and then you divide it by 360, we're going to get an answer. Every now and then, when you're doing a quizzes or a Quizalize or a worksheet, sometimes they're going to ask you to leave pi in the answer. So for just this problem, we're going to do it both ways. We're going to solve it where we leave pi in the answer, so it's exact. We're also going to use our calculators so you need a calculator, to figure out what the distance would be, and we're going to round it to the nearest tenth or nearest hundredth. I think for these examples, I have it set for nearest tenth, but we'll talk about nearest hundredth. Pretty sure one of the quizzes is that I'm assigning is going to be 2 decimal places, which is nearest hundredth. So first we're going to do the decimal answer, the approximate answer, and then we're going to do the exact answer. So here's what we're going to do. First up, I can cancel these zeros. These ending zeros, I can just get rid of them, because if I divide by 10, I've got 6 over 36. Well, let's think about it. What is 6 over 36 really reduce to? I'm going to reduce it down. Now I'm going to get 1 over 6. 6 over 36, 1 over 6. And then I've got 16 pi over 1. Okay. Well, I take it back. Let's do the exact answer first, and then we'll do the approximate. So what I can do, though, is diagonally, I can reduce 6 and 16. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 16 8 times. So if I multiply across, I've got 8 pi over 3. So 8 pi over 3 is the exact length from A to B. Let's get it, though, as a decimal. So now we're going to use our handy-dandy calculator. I'm using a scientific calculator. A lot of you have been asking me about degree mode. If you're using one of these scientific calculators, either you'll see DEG on the screen, or if you're using one of these scientific calculators, you hit DRG, and you'll see right here, hard to see, it's fuzzy, it's fuzzy, it's fuzzy, 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 fuzzy. But you'll see that it gives you the options for degrees, radians, and gradians. Just make sure it's highlighted as degrees. Okay. So if we're in degree mode, I'm going to take 8 times pi, and it really doesn't matter if we use 3.14 or the pi button. So I'm going to do 3.14, and then times, divided by. Go back, delete that, and then divide that by 3. And when I do that, I get 8.37, and then 3. So if I round my answer to the nearest tenth, it's 8.4. If I round my answer to the nearest hundredth, it's 8.37. So I'm going to say this is about 8.37 centimeters. So 8.37 centimeters is that distance from A to B. Go ahead and hit pause on the video. I'm going to put a couple more problems up for you to try, and you're going to nail this. We're back here. We've got a couple examples here. I'm going to try to go through both of these pretty specifically, and then maybe end it with 1 or 2 more you try on your own. Okay, so here we go. A little smaller circle here. If you can't see here, I'll guide you through it. R is the center of our circle. Q and S are going to be endpoints of that segment. It's a diameter, so that's diameter R, QS, diameter QS. R is the center of the circle, and we do have another point here, which is P on the circle. So what do we want to know? We want to know what is the length of PQ. What is the length of arc PQ? So very similar to the last problem. We have a diameter that's 9. And we're going to do it much the same way. We want the arc length. So just like the last problem here, we're going to set it up with this process here. So we're going to say that this is equal to the measure of the arc, which is the same as the central angle, so 75 degrees, divided by 360, or over 360, times 2 pi r, or pi d. So we are going to go times 9 pi. Now, if I just multiply this straight right now on a calculator, I don't try to figure out what the exact answer is with pi in it, we can just do that. So if I pull out, my handy-dandy calculator, that's what we want you guys to do as well. We're going to take 75 times 9 times pi. Again, you can just use 3.14. Make sure you divide it by 360. So hit equals, divide by 360. Final answer. I got 5.8875. So if I round it to the nearest tenth, I'm going to say 5.9. Let's round it to 2 decimal places. We're going to say 5.89. So answer is 5.89 yards. Always look for a label. Look for a label. We've got yards. If they don't have a label, we put units, but look for labels. Okay. Last one before I have you try something on your own. This one's a little different. This time they gave you the arc length. They gave you the central angle. What did they not give us? They didn't give us the radius. They didn't give us the diameter. So it's going to be a little tricky here. Just a little trickier. Okay, we want the radius. So we want r. We want r in feet. So I'm going to go back to this formula right here. This little equation. My little proportion there, that's what I want to use here. So let's do that. Let's get this thing set up. I know that it's the length of the arc divided by the circumference, which I don't know. So I'm going to write 2 pi r equal to the measure of the arc in degrees. So if this is 150, that's also 150 right there. So 150. And then we divide that, of course, by 360. So we got to go back and review how to solve a proportion. So if I'm going to solve a proportion, we cross multiply and divide. So if I cross multiply and divide, I am going to multiply these two, and then I'm going to divide it by 150. So if I do that, I'm going to take 360 times 10.5, and I'm going to get 3,780. Okay, here we are. Let's see how you did. Knock it out of the park. We're going to set up our proportion. Here's our proportion. Arc length over circumference equals measure of the arc over 360. So our arc length is 44. Circumference 2 times pi times 15.28. We don't know the measure of the arc in degrees. We're trying to find that. And we do divide by 360. Again, how do we solve our proportion? Much better than I did last time. Cross multiply. 360 times 44 gives me 15,480. If I multiply 2 times pi times 15.28, I am going to end up getting 30.56 pi. That's times the measure of the angle. Okay. So we are going to divide this. We're going to take 44 times 360. We're going to divide it by the circumference. So 15,480 divided by 30.56 pi. Again, the best way to type this in, unless you're using parentheses, and you could put this whole bottom in parentheses with the 30.56 times pi, is I would take 15,480 divided by 30.56, hit equals, and then divide by 3.14. If you did that, or you go back and do it, I would go back and do it if you didn't do it, you're going to get about 165 degrees. That is correct. So we're going to say that the measure of RS is about 165 degrees. That's pretty close. That looks, again, with a quick drawing on my behalf, about 165 degrees. That's because this angle right here, STR, is also 165 degrees. That wraps it. Conclusion. Watch it again. It's going to be just as exciting the second and third time you watch it. I promise you. Take care of each other. Go Titans. Work on the Quizalize. Work on the quizzes. Work on the one assignment through Khan. And show up to office hours. Also, send me emails if you need help. Screenshots. I will help you. Take care.